After the release of The Doll World,
I make grave mistakes all the time.
a third Thor movie was immediately greenlit for July 2017 under the title Thor Ragnarok. Kevin Feige had stated that he wanted the Thor franchise to become more cosmic and epic in scope, stating that it would be instrumental in setting up the next Avengers film, and wanted to include more obscure Thor characters such as Beta Ray Bill, Balder, Hela and Valkyrie, but ultimately only the latter two made it into the script. However, Alan Taylor flat out refused to return as director after his miserable experience on the second film. The Marvel experience was particularly wrenching because I was sort of given absolute freedom while we were shooting, and then in post-production it turned into a different movie. So that is something I hope never to repeat and don't wish upon anybody else.
You've ruined everything.
After Taylor left, the film's release date was pushed from July to November, and a new director was needed. Ruben Fleischer, Rob Letterman, Rawson Marshall Thurber and Elizabeth Banks were all considered before the job was given to Taika Waititi, who got the job by presenting a sizzle reel of the story to Marvel, who were very impressed and gave him the gig in October 2015. Though he had seen and respected the first two films, Waititi was keen to make the movie in his own style, rather than being forced to conform to the style of the previous movies. A lot of what we're doing with the film is, in a way, kind of dismantling and destroying the old idea and rebuilding it in a new way that's fresh. Everyone's got a slightly new take on their characters, so in that way it feels like the first Thor. I wanted to focus on a standalone film because this could be the only time I do this. I just want to make it my version of a Marvel film in the best way possible.
Great.
Marvel were initially against this, however, but were later convinced after seeing Waititi's previous movies Eagle vs. Shark and What We Do in the Shadows. Chris Hemsworth was also very happy for the change in style, as he felt that the Thor character had become far too humorless in the second one, and was hoping that the lighter tone would be able to emulate that of Guardians of the Galaxy. As long as it doesn't emulate Guardians of the Galaxy 2, we should be fine.
Is that important?
Waititi's desire to make the movie his own way also resulted in a lot of changes from the first two films. For one thing, Thor's girlfriend Jane, played by Natalie Portman, as well as her friends Darcy and Eric, were completely written out. But what's even funnier is that this wasn't because of scheduling conflicts or because the actors refused to return. The producers didn't tell Waititi to include the Earth-based characters in the story, so they just simply weren't asked to come back. Basically, they forgot they existed.
What the hell is that?
In fact, Anthony Hopkins initially didn't want to return as Odin either, but upon reading the script, he was so impressed that he changed his mind. I'm sure the massive paycheck didn't hurt either.
It's a long story.
However, Odin's role in the movie was significantly cut down from what the director planned, as test audiences had reacted poorly to the original scenes, with most of them ending up on the cutting room floor. Surprisingly, Mark Ruffalo was confirmed to reprise his role as the Hulk in this film as well. After he flew away on the jet at the end of Age of Ultron, fans had been speculating for years about whether this meant Marvel were planning to adapt the famous Planet Hulk storyline from the comics, but his casting in this film confirmed that this wouldn't be the case.
Sorry.
For Thor's long-lost evil sister Hela, Charlize Theron was the first choice until the role found its way to Cate Blanchett, who mainly took on the part to please her sons, who were big comic book fans. I'm sure the massive paycheck didn't hurt either.
Running short on options!
Filming ran from July to October of 2016, and unlike many other MCU movies, Waititi encouraged his actors to improvise as much as possible in order to make the filmmaking process more collaborative. He later estimated that at least 80% of the film was improvised. Furthermore, the original cut was around 2 hours and 45 minutes long, but this was trimmed down to 90 minutes as the producers were worried that some of the jokes would outstay their welcome. Well shit, they did learn from Guardians too! However, after a positive reaction to the film's trailer at that year's San Diego Comic-Con, it was decided to add a lot of the jokes back in, with the final cut reaching 2 hours and 10 minutes. Son of a bitch!
You cannot stop it.
Thor Ragnarok premiered on November the 3rd, 2017, and an amusing accident caused the movie to be leaked online early. Mark Ruffalo had been live streaming the premiere on his Instagram, but forgot to switch it off before the film started, and accidentally recorded the first 10 minutes of the movie. And people give Tom Holland shit for spoilers.
Do you all survive the film? Are there characters that don't make it?
Hurts, doesn't it?
Regardless of Ruffalo's mishap, the film proved to be a big hit, raking in $854 million worldwide, the most of any Thor movie. However, unlike the mixed reviews of the first two, this one was met with widespread critical acclaim, with praise for the performances, direction, humor, and change in style. Many still calling it the best Thor movie. It's like saying this is the best shit I took this week. And the film redefined the MCU's portrayal of Thor going forward. And the first thing I noticed is, yeah, there is a lot more comedy in this one than the previous film.
You're being a really bad friend.
You bad friend!
You know what we call you?
No.
We call you the stupid Avenger.
You tiny Avenger!
But don't worry, Marvel continue their formula of big epic moment and then brought down and ruined by dumb comedy. Ha 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 ha!
He's mine.
You are now meeting the Grand Master.
By Odin's beard, you shall not cut my hair, lest you feel the wrath of the mighty Thor. Please, kind sir, do not cut my hair.
Now those foundations are gone.
Where to? I'm not sure. Any suggestions? Meek, where are you from?
Now, not all of them suck, but once you get in that formula and you notice the pattern, it just becomes boring, repetitive, and predictable. But I mean, sometimes they do come out of nowhere.
I choose to run toward my problems and not away from them. That's what...
Don't get me wrong, the comedy is nowhere near as forced and dragged out as other installments, but it is still the same formula over and over again. This joke is repeated twice in 30 seconds.
The fall of Asgard. The great prophecy.
Hang on.
I will tower over the mountains and bury my sword deep in Asgard.
Hang on. Give it a second.
The CGI is insane. Look at this motherfucker! He's what Spawn wishes it was. There's a pretty sweet scene where he takes out all of his minions with the hammer, but what is the giant dude doing? Just sat there watching it all? Oh, okay, very good. It has some awesome imagery, and I can't lie, this is an insane transition to the opening title. Thor ends up returning to Asgard, and I love that they've actually recreated Loki's death in a play, with Chris Hemsworth's real-life brother playing Thor and Matt Damon playing Loki? Random.
It's not possible.
It is pretty funny as Thor takes celebrity photos in London while Loki just looks really annoyed. And hey, they got Brandon Schmidt Clumber Poop! The funny thing is, he wasn't even supposed to be in the film. The director simply heard that the Doctor Strange sets hadn't been demolished yet, so he quickly threw in this cameo because why not?
Why should I care?
They end up finding Odin, and weirdly this scene was originally going to take place in a New York City alleyway, but it was then changed to a Norway clifftop instead. Can't imagine an alleyway having the same vibe, I'm just being honest. But Odin explains that they have an evil sister that nobody knew about. Even checking Google, people are just making up assumptions, but the movie isn't too clear about how nobody was aware of this. And even if I let that slide, nobody seems to act too surprised by it either. But Odin kills himself, I guess, and then he dissipates. How does this work? Why didn't this happen when their mum croaked?
This doesn't make any sense.
Nah, nothing makes sense here, man. The only thing that does make sense is that nothing makes sense.
And yeah, Odin basically says, I created this mess and doomed us all, but whoop, it's your problem now, kids. Bye, bitches! Hela is pretty intimidating, but why is she dressed like a Kryptonian villain?
Neil.
Hey, she really is from Krypton! She even destroys the hammer with ease, which really does sell her as a force to be feared. And then she ruins all of the intimidation factor by dressing like Maleficent. What is this? Why am I meant to take this seriously? And of course, it's another villain who wants to take over the world. How many times? Oh, they've got Tusken Raiders. Where's Anakin when you need him? It is quite interesting to see Thor once again trying to fight without his hammer after becoming so used to having it. We get this side character who is kind of badass and takes out everyone at once. It's pretty cool. Oh wow, Thor's entered a VR simulation game. It turns out they enter a realm owned by Jeff Goldblum playing a gay DJ? Now, he just plays Jeff Goldblum.
Whenever we get to talking, Topaz, about Scrapper 142, what do I always say? She is the, and it starts with a B.
Trash.
No.
But he has some makeup on his lips, so it's completely different. Would you ever suspect that this is a Thor movie?
I preside over a little harlequinade called the Contest of Champions. People come from far and wide to unwillingly participate in it, and you, my friend, might just be part of the new cast.
I can't lie, Jeff Goldblum is a delight in this. He fucking nails this performance. He knows it's a silly character, and he just has so much fun with it.
But for now, I'll settle for the sweet little, who's gonna get him first?
This revolution has been a huge success. Yay us.
Is he any kind of a fighter?
You take this thing out of my neck and I'll show you.
Now listen to that, he's threatening me. And right now, that's the mindset that I'm in. And you know who I'm blaming? Grandma Simon. Hey, don't interrupt me.
Even as a hologram, he looks more convincing as a genie than Will Smith. They introduced the B-Tech version of The Thing from Fantastic Four, but there's just something funny about this big monster speaking in such a posh accent.
I'm made of rocks, as you can see, but don't let that intimidate you.
And fun fact, this character is actually played by the director. That's pretty neat. And Thor trying to flirt or talk to people is awkward but so funny.
You know, I used to want to be a Valkyrie when I was younger, until I found out that you were all women. There's nothing wrong with women, of course. I love women. Sometimes a little too much.
He ends up being forced to fight the Hulk, and him ignoring what's happening to have a quick catch-up is pretty funny.
He's a friend from work!
This line was actually given to Chris Hemsworth by a child he visited for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And Hemsworth promised the child he would get the line into the movie, and he really delivered. It's so sweet. The fight scene is pretty sick as Thor tries to mentally reach Banner. But are you telling me that Asgardians die from a basic stab wound, but they can still survive shit like this? In fact, Thor gets stabbed multiple times and doesn't die. What are the rules? I do feel Loki is a bit wasted in this one. In the last film, he was the highlight, but here he spends most of it chained up and doesn't really do a whole lot. Although this is hilarious.
There was one time when we were children, he transformed himself into a snake, and he knows that I love snakes. So I went to pick up the snake to admire it, and he transformed back into himself, and he was like, "Yeah, it's me!" And he stabbed me. We were 8 at the time.
It's even funnier that Loki is clearly trying not to laugh. But hey, at least Thor finally learned to not be a dumbass and not trust his brother.
Dear brother, becoming predictable.
Took you long enough. And I love how he's always so hesitant to fight his brother, but here he has no issue going on a brutal fight to the death with his sister. It does look pretty awesome seeing this spaceship battle and chase through such a futuristic looking city. None of it ever looks fake. Except maybe here. Throughout the movie, Thor suddenly has these thunder powers that he's never had before. But oh well, now he has them. They just come and go randomly though. Could have done with these a bunch of times before now. Glad he'll have them in future movies though. I can't lie though, it's insane as Thunder Thor takes everybody out. Then the climax randomly introduces Hulk versus giant wolf thing we met 10 minutes ago. And it's another movie where Loki redeems himself. How many times does he need to redeem himself only to fuck it up again? Who cares? Thor Ragnarok is pretty damn good. It's certainly the best of the 3 so far, but that's not saying a whole lot. I like the stuff with Thor and Hulk. Goldblum is wonderful and is a very entertaining and sometimes funny watch. The only major criticism I have is the same formulaic humour that I've mentioned, but it doesn't drag it down that much. It's still a damn good film and worth the view. We're over halfway. We are over halfway, guys. We're nearly there.